When, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with their federal government, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life from the first moment of conception, liberty from oppression, and the pursuit of all that is honest. And that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty, to throw off such government, and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of the citizens of these United States, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present Masonic political class in Washington, D.C., hereafter referred to as the Swamp, is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. That the Swamp has refused assent to laws which are the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. That the Swamp, in the person of Mike Pence, the traitor, with the connivance of the Senate and House in joint session and separately, has dared to transgress the civil rights and due process rights guaranteed by the 14th and 5th Amendments, and to violate the 1887 Electoral Count Act by counting as regularly cast the falsified electoral ballots of Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, against overwhelming evidence of nationwide coordinated election fraud. That the Swamp has planned and orchestrated an attack on the Capitol building of these United States with the express and malign intent to frame a sitting president of the United States with the charge of insurrection. That the Swamp, in the person of the House, has dared to impeach a sitting president, duly elected by the people, without following the due process rights to which he is guaranteed by the Fifth Amendment. That the Swamp, in the person of the Senate, has dared to hear the articles of impeachment so improperly and unjustly moved and voted. That the Swamp has dared inaugurate as President of these United States a man who was not elected by the people. That the Swamp has dared violate the sanctity of the nation's capital by bringing in 25,000 militia for the sole purpose of making their usurpation of the federal government appear justified. That the Swamp has colluded for 4 years with the mainstream media, the FBI, the CIA, the Supreme Court, and many federal agencies to topple a duly elected President of the United States on numerous documented bogus claims. That the swamp has shielded and protected notorious criminals and traitors from prosecution and conviction, such as Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, Joe and Hunter Biden, George Soros, Bill Clinton, Jack Dorsey, Mark Zuckerberg, etc. That the swamp has conspired and colluded to alter the meaning of the natural-born citizen clause of the United States Constitution, whereby only one born on U.S. soil of two U.S. parents at the time of birth who were citizens be a candidate for the office of U.S. President. That the swamp, through the Senate's appointments and Supreme Court, has colluded to deprive the people of the right of petition and due process by denying them standing in federal courts against the injustices perpetrated against the people. That the swamp has forbidden the governors of these several states to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance, but overturned them by novel and outrageous reinterpretations of the Constitution of these United States, against such as these: to protect the right to life of innocent human persons from the moment of their conception to the last moment of natural life; the right to speak the truth and defend the reputation of honest men from calumny, libel, and infamy; to protect the rights of citizens to bear arms; to protect the sanctity of marriage between a man and a woman; to protect the rights of Christians to worship in private and public, to live and work and to conduct their affairs according to their consciences; to defend and uphold the legal traditions and rights which we have inherited from our forefathers. That the swamp has obstructed the promulgation of laws necessary for national defense of its borders, while engaging in numerous costly foreign wars to the ruin of the national treasury and the devaluation of the savings of the people. That the swamp has created institutions to control the people and advantage itself, which have no foundation or existence in the Constitution, such as the Federal Reserve, the IRS, the Department of Education, the Department of Energy, the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Health and Human Services, etc. That the swamp has, in violation of the Constitution, appropriated to itself the lands of the several states in the Bureau of Land Management. That the swamp has endeavored to leave undefended the people of these states by allowing massive, continual illegal immigration, coordinated by enemies of these United States, for the purpose of diluting the votes of the people, depriving them of work, endangering their lives, and ruining the national treasury with debt. That the swamp has obstructed the rights of the people by passing laws which punish the people for exercising their Christian liberties and natural rights guaranteed by God, common law, and the traditions of this nation. That the swamp has made judges dependent upon their will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries. That the swamp has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. That the swamp has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our state legislatures. That the swamp has affected to render their political parties independent of and superior to the civil power of the people. That the swamp has combined with China, international Marxism, the Masonic lodges, and foreign powers to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving their assent to their acts of pretended legislation for quartering large bodies of illegal aliens among us, for protecting them by a mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states, for destroying our national economy by moving our jobs to other parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us in many cases from having swamp creatures tried by a jury of the people, for transporting us beyond the boundaries of our sovereign state for pretended offenses, for abolishing the free system of elections, whereby the people individually are guaranteed one vote, one ballot, and proper identification is used and diligently employed to prevent fraud in elections, for taking away our legal traditions, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our government, for suspending the laws of our states and declaring that the federal courts are superior to the courts of the states, that the swamp usurped the federal government and declared it treasonous for the people to defend their right to elect their president, dispute election fraud, and to share facts and evidence in the public forum, that the swamp has plundered our national treasury, ravaged our cities, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people by tolerating and promoting organized crime and Marxist insurrection, that the swamp is at this time transporting large armies to our cities to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny, already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages and totally unworthy of the government of a civilized nation, that the swamp has constrained our sons and daughters to bear arms in its unjust and corrupt wars, and has forced them to arrest and detain us when we stand up for our rights and make our petitions known in public assembly, that the swamp has excited domestic insurrections among us, and has endeavored to bring upon the inhabitants of these states armies of foreign criminal organizations and gangs to the deprivation of our life, liberty, and prosperity. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A government whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Nor have we been wanting in attentions to those who claim to be our representatives in the national capital. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of the constitutional and civil rights. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They too have been deaf to the voices of justice and of consanguinity. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation, and hold them, as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends. We, therefore, the free people of the United States of America, before the sight of Almighty God and mankind, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by the authority of the good people of these states, solemnly publish and declare that these United States are, and of right ought to be free and independent of the swamp, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the Masonic deep state, and that all political connection between them and this state of fiends is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all the other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.